There are three things that I had to engage with once I identify myself as a highly sensitive person, or some of my behaviors as highly sensitive, or just the career that I'm in as a musician, as a writer, as a moderator. Once I accepted that, well, I'm doing the work of somebody who's taking in a lot of feelings and emotions from other people. What does that mean for my life? And how can I go about my life a lot better with the understanding that I am a highly sensitive person, or sometimes I'm very, very vulnerable. And this can relate to you because you've most definitely been vulnerable at some point, or you shy away from it, or you felt sensitive at one moment and you hid it, or you didn't want to show anybody. And it's perfectly normal. That happens all the time because, again, the theme that we've been going over lately is those closest to you can hurt you. And if somebody knows your emotions, then they can weaponize them against you. But on the other end, if people know your emotions, they can empathize with you. They can care for you. You can share stories. People that are close to you can care for you the most, love you the most, laugh the hardest with you. And I wanted to prompt this all with the question that was asked in the comments. This isn't part of a series. This is one of one, I believe. But the question is, from the point of discovery, to where you are now, how long has it been that you likely feel more settled and empowered as a HSP? How would you describe the people who impact you or stay in your life as complementary? What does that look like? Thank you. So we'll get into the first and the last question, but the second one, how would you describe the people who impact you or stay in your life as complementary? I love this question because it's not about the question of the people that are in my life. It's about how I am being with the people in my life. Once you find out that it's all here, and it basically, what's going to determine everything is as you go within, so you go without. The people in my life, they might be the same, they might not be, but the way that I'm being with them is entirely different than I was in the past. And that is through an immense amount of grace, and then navigating that grace. Grace, I don't think people should mistake it for as just like, oh, permission, or just, it's a space where you can do anything you want. Giving grace. Grace for me, it's a buffer zone. It's almost like it's like the landing strip, like at an airport. It's like where everything can kind of cool down. The longer the strip, the more, you can kind of have some room to land or take off from. And grace in that regard, I think, is just understanding that everybody is, first of all, neurodiversity, and understanding that everybody is going through something different. And this really came to me throughout 2020, working with families impacted by police violence, and then working with families that were just impacted by economic stratification. And even before that, when I was working with youth that were essentially in exigent circumstances. And I remember the stories of a lot of the people that I've worked with, and the thing that always was the through line for everybody is everybody has a story. And regardless whether it was, losing a family member or getting an A-, the impact that we have, the triggers that we have, the way that we respond it's all relative, and there's really no measurement between the two. You can say that one's worse than that one. However, we feel it in a different way. The measurement and the merit to which we feel something is entirely within us. And once I started changing the way I looked at everything, here goes Wayne Dyer again, everything changed. And the way that I felt about it changed too. There was more space for it. I didn't engage in just period, end of sentence, drop the garage door condemnation. I had a lot more capacity for people because I started giving myself that capacity. So my journey has not been about the people in my life that stay as complementary. It's about how I am being with those people. And am I being supportive? Am I being supportive of them and of myself? Am I being complimentary to myself and them? Like, what does that look like? But to get to your question, from the point of discovery to where you are now, how long has it been that you likely feel more settled and empowered as an HSP? And that, it's been a long time, I'll just say that. It's felt very long, because there's moments, I remember when I was on tour with the band and I just couldn't pin down why I would just have these waves of emotions, and I could only settle it by sitting in a coffee shop and writing and doing art. It was seemingly that there was, I felt extremely just like a outcast. Like I just did not operate the way everybody else in the band operated or people that we met. And I just felt like I just felt like a black sheep. I didn't know what was going on. So then what I ended up doing, like assimilating the crowds, was being a yes person, people pleasing. And that comes from childhood trauma as well. But I didn't really get that figured out, or at least start to figure that out, until I would say about 5 years ago. And that I knew it was going on. I knew what was happening. I had access to my emotions. I could communicate what was happening. However, the issue was there was so much shame and guilt tied up in it. And until I confronted the shame and guilt of how I felt, sorry, I cracked my neck there, I wasn't able to fully confront it and change it. My awareness wasn't there, so there was no transmutation. And you can't change the vibration of something that you're not aware of. So I was totally just, I didn't know what I didn't know. And that was as far as I could go. There is only so far that you can go if you are not aware of what is going on. And until you face it, you cannot change it. That's my belief, my experience, my opinion. And that is not an indictment towards anybody. The idea is that let's get you aware of what's going on, so then you can change what's happening if you choose to do so. You might be aware of what's going on and you'd be like, nah, I'm gonna keep it like this. So to give you 3 or 4 things that really changed the way that I am being, the first thing is I stopped giving people what I first wasn't giving myself. So until I was giving myself something, I could not give it to somebody else. I just stopped doing it. So this idea of, patience and grace, if I wasn't giving it to myself, why would I give that to everybody else? And it wasn't about like limiting what I was giving other people. It was essentially about, well, I got to give this to myself. I got to love myself like a lot. I got to really be reasonable with myself. And man, I did a lot today. So I'm sure at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't do enough. And if you really reflect on it, you're like, oh, I did a lot. Let's chill out. I think that's really important because you're supporting yourself. And we talked about this earlier with you versus you. It's not that. It's you advocating for you in a positive way towards the thing that you have, towards the goal that you have. And once you do that, then sky's the limit, man. It's not even the limit. You're advocating for yourself, and you are then being more compassionate towards other people. I would not have the relationship I have with my mom right now had I not started being different. And the whole, and my father, we talked about this earlier. The idea is that I couldn't give the space to other people to be who they are until I gave myself the space to be who I am. And that takes a lot of searching on who are you, what do you want, what is your identity? Once you get into that, then you can start giving room and space and love to that person that you're being, those goals that you want, the visions that you have, even the way that you laugh, dog. The way that you express joy. Some people will absolutely guilt themselves or shame themselves. Like when you start accepting you and you have to figure out who you are, then you can start to make that headway with giving other people things that you're already giving yourself. A second thing I started doing was I accepted that my receptors are just a little more sensitive than the others around me. I took longer to explain things. I used more words when I was telling a story. I laughed really loud. There's just some quirky things that I do. And like even in the way that you see me being right now, I'm like thinking about it and I'm like, oh, buddy. And that is a natural response that sometimes we feel guilt or shame for having these big feelings or having a big response to the big feeling. once I understood that, I was like, oh, I'm feeling, the warmth or the cold of this room a little more than other people, or, the emotional warmth or the emotional cold of this room a little more than other people. I'm feeling the distance from this person a little deeper than that person is, or I really want to tell this story to this person. I'm really eager. Oh my goodness, my anxiety. I feel like I'm going to explode. So it's like once I accepted that, then I was able to be like, oh, I don't have to respond to it. Not the way that I've been responding to it. I don't need to. Not everything is urgent. Everything when I was in the blind spot of being a highly sensitive person, everything was urgent. Oh my goodness. I mean, it was like I couldn't move fast enough, and I couldn't get enough done in the day. It was wild, and I found that fascinating because I look at it now and I'm like, you will. I think I read this in Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. You will die, and there will still be chores left to do. That's it. Your life is full just by you being here right now. There's no checklist that you need to finish. There's no boxes that you need to fill out. You have fulfilled your duty by being here right now, by just being you. It is your birthright that you have fulfilled. This is it. You did it. Congratulations. So once I accepted that there's no urgency to get all these things done, and oh no, this song is unfinished, the flow just was like, it was what it was, and more things got done as a byproduct of that. I was applying non-resistance to my desired outcome happened every single time, and it happened in a way that was with a lot more ease, a lot less force, a lot less anxiety than I could have imagined before. So really accepting that, hey, buddy, you feel it pretty deeply. We get it. You're seeing the brightness of everything, the saturation. I'm talking in Photoshop terms now. All of that. It really, once I accepted it, I was like, oh, that's me. Cool. I don't have to explain myself to anybody. I don't have to really, get into a wordy response at all. Like I'm just gonna be me. I'll tell the story if I prefer to. A third thing I did. This is huge. Stopped mistaking grace for laziness. If I'm giving myself space or time to wind down, I would sometimes judge myself and say, well, you're not doing anything. You're being lazy. And that, I would hurt my own feelings just in that statement. And that really, it threw me off to the point that I was in a constant flow. Like the sun would go down. It would be 10, 11, midnight. And I would think that I still need to be working. That's a tough way to be. And I combat that every single day, every day. That's what I love about working in the service industry, is because there's a time you clock in and there's a time you clock out. Work does not start until you get there. Work is done when you leave there. I love that. That for me has been a huge tool and device in my life that has just shown me that you do not carry the work with you. You carry your heart with you. You carry, your humanity with you. That's it. And you can shut it down whenever you want, and it's not lazy if you choose to take a gosh darn nap. So that has been a big thing, is just giving permission. It's like, hey, you do not have to be on all the time. And we will get into 2020 and 2021 and kind of some universal lessons that can be learned from that. But being on all the time was one of them. And that was an extremely tough spot that I was in, and many others in the city that I'm in, because you felt guilty if you didn't show up for something. You felt shame if you felt you said the wrong thing. You felt shame if you weren't there, or FOMO, or some weird thing like that. And there was a lot. And so once I started saying, this isn't lazy, this is just grace. I'm just chilling. I don't need to do a darn thing, dog. Like, I can chill. That was huge. It was the permission to rest. Really the permission to rest. And the last thing is therapy. I don't even need to look at this. Therapy. was what helped me understand where I'm at as a highly sensitive person, because it was an immediate space where from the get, when I walked through the door, we know what it is. We know what it is. We know who we are. We know how we feel. We know how we react. So let's sit through the stories and navigate, man. Let's get to the bottom of this. And it was such a cathartic space that it created it showed me that I could be a highly sensitive person and not have all of these misunderstandings or have any baggage or have any urgency. I could have all these things and just be me. Like, it was the permission to be me. It was the freedom to be me. In therapy, it could come in different forms. It could be meditation, could be church, could be prayer, could be a lot of different things for people. It could just be one-on-one talk therapy. But the whole point of it being is that you are intentionally going into a space and just committing to self-care. That was it. That was all it took. It wasn't the process of self-care. It wasn't the permission of self-care. It wasn't how I care for myself. It was just, I am intentionally committing self-care. That's it. As opposed to unintentionally committing self-harm. It went from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. Like, it was just, I'm gonna heal myself. I gotta do this. I see no other way. I wanna love me. I wanna love me, to be a better son, to be a better friend, this, that, a third. And so therapy really, really changed me and turned the corner for me. And that all of this to say, as we go back over the takeaways, I'll give you them just really quickly here in case you wanna write these down. One was, stop giving people what I wasn't first giving myself. Two was accepting that my receptors are a little more sensitive than the others around me, and that is what it is. And three was, stop mistaking grace for laziness. And four was going to therapy. And all of these things are starting from within. All of them are. As a highly sensitive person, it is easy to get caught up in the external reality. Oh man, I dropped the milk, or I spilled the thing. Oh no, you see it, and then the shame, guilt, bad person, identity, dysmorphia, it all compounds. And next thing you know, you're beating up yourself and you're talking trash to yourself. So that, I want you to really, really engage with, it's starting with you. And when you begin to do that, you begin to kind of open some windows and really let the space, you allow the possibility for you to be you. That is huge. That's the first step. And it's for you to be you in the presence of you. A lot of us, we might be alone in a room and we are casting judgment and constantly talking ish to ourselves. Nobody else has to be there. When you can start doing this work just between you and you, that's when amazing things start happening. Or you give yourself the permission to have self-care. You intentionally commit acts of self-care. That is where it started for me. And it's tough to get there. Not everybody knows, a path or a journey to personal awareness and self-actualization as a highly sensitive person. Because it's weird, because it's like a paradox, because you're feeling things at a high sensitivity and then being judged for it, which then makes you beat yourself up. And so the whole path gets obscured a lot, and you feel lost sometimes. That's what I felt a lot. And we'll get into like a lot of those other stories later, but thank you for the question. I hope I answered it as best I could. And this is just, 4 things of how to intentionally commit self-care as a highly sensitive person or somebody who's feeling vulnerable at the moment. All right, we'll see you in the next video.